Good evening, everybody. I'd like to declare the council meeting open. The prayer of council will be read by the Reverend Stuart Pearson from St Luke's Anglican Church, and that will be followed by the national anthem. Please, could you be upstanding?
Settings, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and their ancestors past and present, the Cabrogal clan of the Darug Nation. I also acknowledge that this land was accessed by the peoples of the Dharawal and Darug Nations. We affirm our hope and dedication to the good government of our city and the well-being of all Liverpool's residents, no matter their race or creed. Tonight, we affirm our hope for sound decision-making by council, which will improve the quality of life in our city. We express our expectations and best wishes for Australia, our nation's future, the Mayor, councillors, staff of council and all those associated with the good government in Liverpool. Let me lead us in prayer. Heavenly Father, ruler of all nations and people, we give you thanks for the stable government and relative peace that we enjoy in this land, Australia. We also give you thanks for those who serve as our elected representatives in federal, state and local government. Your word commands us to pray for rulers and all those in authority, and so we bring before you this sitting of the Liverpool City Council. We pray for our Mayor Wendy Waller and all the elected councillors. Grant to them wisdom as they seek to govern the Liverpool government area so that justice and peace is promoted and that integrity and truth upheld so that we, the citizens, can live peaceful and productive lives. We also give you thanks for the management and staff of Liverpool City Council, and we pray that they might continue to perform their duties with integrity so that they'll be a credit not only to themselves but to the city which they serve. And I pray this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair. Beneath our radiant southern cross, let's toil with hearts and hands to make this commonwealth of ours renowned of all the lands. For those who've come across the seas, we've boundless plates to share. With courage let us all combine to advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Thank you. If you all be seated. I have an apology for Councillor Ayard. Do we have any other apologies? Councillor, sorry? Thank you. Any other apologies? I'll put the apologies. Those in favour, those against, carried. We have no condolences this evening that I'm aware of. Minutes of the previous meeting.
Move adoption. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor.
I have one amendment.
Yes, Councillor. What is your amendment?
Bear with me, but there was I can't find the page anyway. It's the bit about the voting on the local planning panel thing. So it has me leaving and Mayor Waller leaving. Mayor Waller comes back, but I don't. But I would like to reassure everyone I did return.
Move adoption with that amendment. Thank you, Madam
Thank
Mayor.
you. You're happy to second that, Councillor Haggerty? If you come back, are you happy to be the seconder? All right, thank you. Any other issues for those minutes? I'll put it, those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Any declarations of interest? None? Okay. We have nobody public forum. That's first for a long time. Okay, no mayoral minute. The first item is on page 64.
I have a question.
Yes.
Just in regards to the traffic works, it's not entirely explicit, but it refers to Kurrajong and cow pasture. There are two entrances via Kurrajong and cow pasture, and I think that's the key to solving that traffic issue. And I just would like to know if we understand that it's not just the main one that takes you across to Greenway Park, it's the one sort of further up near the McDonald's that also need to be part of this wider solution.
Mr Smith, are you able to comment on that?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the CEO, the deed of commitment that's been offered by the developer is for the upgrade of the Cow Pasture Road, Kurrajong Road intersection. Council has already done concept designs for the upgrade of that intersection. We've received funding for that intersection upgrade from the federal government's Black Spot program. So this offer by the developer will complete the funding so that Council can deliver that intersection upgrade. We are aware of more broader traffic impacts in this area, which will be considered once a development application is lodged, including potentially closing accesses, etc. Yep.
Did that answer your question? Yes, Councillor.
Can I just ask what the time frame of that second set of works might take?
Mr Smith?
Through the CEO, that's ultimately dependent upon the lodgement of a development application. Our initial discussions with Charter Hall has been that they're preparing DA documentation, so an actual timeframe I couldn't give you, Councillor.
Thank you. We've got a mover. Thank you, Councillor Hull. Seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Yes, Councillor Haggerty, did you want to say something? That was just you seconding. We're seconding in several places. Thank you very much. Is there any opposition to this? Okay, I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it unanimous. Next item's on page 129.
I'd like to move an amendment.
You'd like to move a motion?
Move the motion, but I'd like to amend the wording in the the recommended one. So as per the book...
Yeah.
No, we're not on that one. We're on the next one.
We're on page 129.
Yeah.
Street naming.
Street naming.
Oh, we are on street naming?
Yes.
Wow. I apologise. I have...
I'll move that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes.
Madam Mayor, I have a question in regards to the street naming.
Yes, Councillor.
One of the concerns that's been raised with me by residents is the timing that it takes to go from the naming of the streets, the development, and then into the change from lot numbers to actual street numbers. Currently, there are residents who are waiting up to 3 or 4 years between actually having street numbers attached to their properties. Is there any way that we can kind of speeden up that process?
Mr Smith, are you comfortable speaking to that?
I can. We are aware of that issue. The issue being when you've got developments along a section of road and you've got a parcel of land that hasn't developed and may not develop for a year or two, Council's practice has been not to name a number from lot to an actual number until that development is sorted. However, we are looking into ways that we can do that by estimating the number of lots that could be developed in that. There is some risk with that by having A's and B's, which we want to avoid, but it is certainly something that we are investigating because we're aware of it, particularly in Carnes Hill as an example.
Okay, can we have a seconder, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Caliendo. Is there any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item is on page 143.
I have a motion.
Do you, Councillor?
Yep.
What is your motion?
Just getting ahead of myself previously. As per the book.
Yes.
But just in point 2... Oh, sorry. So, yeah. As per the book, we would resolves to adopt option A.
So you're adopting 1A?
Yep, so leave it.
Adopting 1A, yes.
Leave it as is. And just on 2, receives a further report. Obviously, yeah, receives a further report on option 1A rather than the preferred option. And also a little bit in there, just with a view to, I don't know how you want to word this, but leaving a bit of fat in there. So rather than getting it back to 0, let's do it sort of -9, -8 in anticipation for further growth. So instead of doing it in 4 years, we do it in, say, 8 or 12 years. Yep.
That's what we're aspiring to do as much as possible, Councillor.
Okay, so is everybody clear on the motion? Thank you, Councillor Canib. So moved by Councillor Haggerty and seconded by Councillor Canib. Is there any discussion? Anybody opposing? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it unanimous. Next item's on page 148.
Move that way. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I have a question.
Yes, Councillor.
I could be mistaken, but after going through the member for Holsworthy's an article which mentioned the member for Holsworthy, I understand there was a commitment to car parking at Casula car parking station which hasn't made this report. And that's quoting the member for Holsworthy in an article in The Guardian.
I don't have that detail in front of me. If we've missed that one, I'm more than happy to discuss it. We certainly were in initial conversations with Transport for New South Wales in regards to car parking using Casula Powerhouse. Those negotiations have stalled.
Okay. Do we have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Canib. Is any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried unanimously. Next item's in your addendum book. It's on page 4.
Move that way.
Thank you, Councillor Hadid. Is seconder?
I'll second it.
Councillor Hall beat you to the punch, Councillor, sorry. Any discussion? Any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried unanimous. Next item's on page 154.
Move that way. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Second it.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. So moved by Councillor Shelton and seconded by Councillor Rhodes. Any discussion?
Just in regards to the memo on everyone's desk.
Yes?
I don't know if everyone's had time to read that, but that may change.
The CEO would like to speak to it, if that's okay.
Yep. Councillors, just to advise that we've been in some conversations with the International Eid Festival around where they're going to hold their festival. We just want to make sure that while we're in those negotiations that funding is only provided to either of the groups, conditional on them undertaking their festival in the Liverpool Council area. So we've just made that amendment. Ms Angeliano has made that amendment for you.
Thank you. Councillor Haggerty, did you wish to add to this? You're fine. Thanks. Any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it unanimous. Page 190.
Move that way. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much, Councillor Shelton. Have we got a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Canib. Any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it unanimous. Gee, we're getting on well tonight. Next item's on page 193.
Move that way too. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shelton.
Second it.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Any discussion? Any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it unanimous. Page 203.
Happy to move those as a... Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Haggerty. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Hadid. Any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item is on page, excuse me, I'll just turn my page, 256, which is on busking.
Nothing arising in relation to that, Madam Mayor. I note the comments in response to the question. I note that there's going to be a review coming out in May, which was always understood to be the case. And I note that the response indicates that the matters raised in the question will be taken into account as part of the review. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Shelton. I think the staff have taken that on board. Next item's on page 257.
Same comments in relation to that, Madam Mayor. I noticed there's a program of installation, perhaps at its early stages, that's underway, and that's going to continue. And I think it was various staff and community members who raised this earlier on. So I continue to await further results as the installation progresses. I'll also note in particular the comments in relation to battery storage.
Thank you so much.
Oh, and also, Madam Mayor,
yes.
As time goes by, the Council's going to be looking at progressively the electrification of at least part of its vehicle fleet.
Correct. Yes, that is correct. Thank you. The next item's on page 259. Councillor Haggerty.
Very important issue. I eagerly await the response.
Thank you. Next item's Councillor Chitty, who I think we'll hold over to the next meeting. Oh, no, we won't. Next item's on 260.
We'll prepare a response for next meeting.
Madam Mayor, I have a query.
Hold on a moment. Just okay. It's going to be the next meeting. Yes, Councillor Rhodes.
Yes, I didn't get any information back on question with notice for mine.
For yours?
QN 05.
We haven't got there yet. You're next. It's all right. We were just dealing with Councillor Chitty's, which will be dealt with in the next council meeting.
Yeah.
Your item's now before us, Councillor, and that's on page 261.
261.
And it says the response will be provided in the May meeting.
Yep.
Okay. Is there anything you wanted to add at this point? No? Okay. Thank you. Next item's on page 262.
Yes, likewise, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll await the next meeting in May for a response to that item.
Thank you so much, Councillor. Next item is on page 263, the name of Councillor Haggerty and Councillor Caliendo.
Yep, move as per the book there. Happy to speak to this.
Before you do, the CEO would like to give us some information.
I can provide just one further update in relation to this particular matter. I received information this afternoon that the functions of the Office of the Local Government will be absorbed into the planning cluster, as you understand, but we'll be reporting to the Deputy Secretary for Planning, which means that Office of Local Government or local government doesn't have a seat at the leadership table in that cluster. They've been now essentially relegated to third ranking in terms of authority.
I would like to amend my motion.
You can. I'm taking it from the book that it's being moved by Councillor Haggerty and seconded by Councillor Caliendo, if that's correct, is it?
That is correct.
Can
I just ask a question in relation to the information that the CEO has received? Was there any sort of indication of the funding impact of that?
All I've seen is the organisational structure of the secretaries, the deputy secretaries, and the particular clusters that report up to them. And I have not yet been formally advised. So, yeah.
Yes, Councillor Rhodes.
I might be able to add a little bit of more information on that because I asked the same question to find out what exactly was happening, and the information that I got was that it'll be made the actual responsibilities of the ministers will be announced over the coming weeks. They also sent to me that, what will be happening here at Council just will not change. We'll be still dealing with the Office of Local Government as we normally do. And they say, surprisingly enough, that the Office of Local Government has not been abolished. And the Planning and Industry Secretary, Jim Betts, is working with the cluster leadership group, and they are putting their energy into getting the new agency and teams up and running. And the Office of Local Government functions will continue to be a priority in the new planning and industry cluster, and there will be no regional job losses as a part of this process. That was the information that I received today. So on the basis of that, I wonder if I could make an amendment to the motion that just says notes the Office of Local Government and Minister of Local Government's advice, which is that, and updates, number 2, updates Council at such time that any changes on how the Office of Local Government's existing resources, functions and funding may alter from the current advice, or something to that effect.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
I'll ask the mover and the seconder if they're happy to adopt that as
No.
No? Okay. Councillor Caliendo? No? So we'll treat yours as a foreshadowed motion.
Thank you.
Councillor. Just hold on to that thought. Okay, Councillor Haggerty, you were saying you wish to amend your motion or just leave it as is?
Well, I'd like to add a new bit in between 1 and 2, so a new 2.
A 2A or 2B, maybe? A 2B?
Well, it'll be 2, 2 will be 3 and 3 will be 4.
Okay, and what is it?
That council notes that the functions of the former Office of Local Government will be relegated.
Mm-hmm.
I need some words here. In importance.
And notes the importance of the role of the Office of Local Government?
Yeah. Well, will be relegated in its importance in regards to...
Perhaps I can suggest that we note that local government, as the CEO sort of suggested before, the local government will not have a seat at the leadership table. Something to that effect.
So, just so for my clarity, your motion would read 1 as is in the book? Yes?
Yep.
2 as in the book? So there's a new 2, and the 2 is notes the functions of the formal Office of Local Government will be relegated in its importance and will not have a seat at the leadership table. And 3 is as a 2, and 3 is 4. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Councillors clear on that? Yes, Councillor Rhodes.
Can I suggest that number 2 doesn't make a lot of sense, because you're saying expressing its opposition to the abolition of the Office of Local Government, and yet notes that the functions of the former Office of Local Government, the Office of Local Government is still there. It hasn't been abolished. What has happened is that it's moved to a new cluster, and I don't know, take the CEO's advice tonight that they're not going to be at the head of table. I don't know what that exactly means, but...
So, Councillor, if I can give some clarity, you'll see the comment that we've received, which states, and this is from the State Government, to more effectively deliver services and advice to government, both the offices of Environment and Heritage and local government will cease to be independent entities, and these functions will transition back into the broader department. So the Office of Local Government as an independent entity will cease to be. The information that I received today, though again I state I have not been formally advised on this, is that there will not be a Deputy Secretary who is directly responsible for local government matters. Instead, local government and the current CEO of the Office of Local Government will be reporting up to the Deputy Secretary of Planning and Assessment.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, do you wish to debate your motion, Councillor Haggerty?
I'll be quick.
Before you do, is it possible to slightly amend the wording of 2 just to clarify that that's the functions of the former Office of Local Government will be relegated in its importance, and issues specifically relating to local government will not have a seat at the leadership table?
Okay. That's more pertinent. Yeah, okay. Right. Thank you. Councillor, are you happy for that amendment, Councillor Haggerty? Yes, Councillor did. Councillor Rhodes, yes. Well, she's not on yet, so just hold your horses. Okay, Councillor Haggerty, would you like to speak to your motion?
I would. Very disappointing news from the newly elected state government, and congratulations to the newly elected state government. Effectively, what this is, the signal that this is sending is that planning is paramount, and secondary and thirdly and fourthly to planning is local government, heritage and the environment, and green space. That is not the case. We are the third level of government. We are, we make very important decisions. We represent our community. We're the the closest level of government to the people, and we should have a seat at the table. You know, a lot of the functions that you can't basically have us hidden away in a broom closet somewhere in the Department of Planning. People come first. People before planning, and if you relegate the Office of Local, or if you get rid of the Office of Local Government and relegate those functions somewhere within the Planning Department, you're essentially sending a signal that planning is paramount, and all the functions that local government and councillors and staff perform, which is not just planning, but community functions, you know, things around social cohesion, childcare, health, wealth, safety. These are not important, and planning is first and foremost in this state government's mind. It's very disappointing, and we need to send a message or a letter outlining that, and we also need to get our local state members on board to advocate on our behalf. Note that this comes on top of forced amalgamations. Some were successful, some weren't, and it also comes on top of cost shifting. The Crown Land stuff being an example, also comes on top of us having our ability to determine DAs. So this is a pattern, and it's not just, hasn't just started with this term of government. It actually goes back to the beginning of the Liberal government back in 2011, that they do not consider local government important, and bit by bit they are peeling away at its powers and its importance.
Thank you, Councillor. Would someone like to speak against the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes.
It's not that I'm against what my colleague Councillor Haggerty is saying about the importance of the Office of Local Government. I just feel that this motion is premature. The CEO has had no official confirmation of the information that she's given us today. I would hate to think that the Office of Local Government has been demoted in some way, and it isn't going to be as relative as what it has been in the past, because we all understand that local government is the closest contact that we have with our constituents and should be maintained with great importance. My objection to the motion as put is that I just simply think that it's premature. I think that we should note the Office of Local Government and the Minister of Local Government's advice, but we can't say that because another such advice that we've received is that it hasn't been abolished. I think that's a matter of semantics about how it is worded, but I think it would be very wise for us to sit for a little while, ask the CEO to update us when confirmation of what is actually happened has come to Council, and then, Councillor Haggerty, if it is so relevant as what you have put in your motion, is the time for such a motion. But at this stage, I think we should wait and see exactly what this is all about.
Thank you, Councillor. I would, before we go into further debate, still draw the councillor's attention to page 264, where there was a formal amount of information given to the CEO and to the council regarding how the Office of Local Government will function, and that has been pointed out to you by the CEO. So, any other speakers?
Yeah, Madam
Yes,
Mayor.
Councillor did.
Well, thanks. Well, I do agree with my colleagues, Councillor Road, in this regard. I don't believe there is any need to support the motion moved by my colleague, Councillor Haggerty. I don't believe there is any significant changes to the Office of Local Government. I believe the Office of Local Government will keep serving council and councillors in best possible way. I don't know why we're moving such this motion as long as we're still receiving the same services. What I believe, Councillor Haggerty, is very good when it comes to propaganda. It is
Point of
very
order.
good. It's very good at it.
Point of
There is
order.
no fact.
Councillor did. A point of order has been called. That means you be quiet. Councillor, what is your point of order?
I think Councillor Hachidi could be wrong, but propaganda, that I'm good at propaganda. Yeah.
Yes, I will uphold
Take
that.
offence.
I think that people would see propaganda as falsehoods, and I think you need to apologise to your colleague, Councillor.
I do apologise, but I believe his motion steals.
Excuse me,
based on
Councillor,
no
what did you
fact.
just say?
I said I
didn't-
do.
Sorry, thank you. Keep going.
Yeah, okay. But still, I believe this motion has no base to be moved. There is no fact. The only fact we have now, the Office of Local Government will keep providing services to council and councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Did. Any other speakers for? Councillor Caliander, did you wish to speak?
Oh, yes, Madam Mayor. I think the key part of the response is that the offices of local government and environment and heritage will cease to be independent entities. Now, whilst they are independent entities, that is when they can provide an appropriate level of support, an appropriate level of advice without fear or favour, regardless of who's in government. Now, I don't care if it's, one party or the other that's providing the support to this, but it has to be independent advice that puts the interests of those who are serving, those who are in local government first and foremost. And whilst these entities cease to be independent, we can no longer be guaranteed that the advice and the support that we get from the Office of Local Government it does that anymore. And I think the other question in relation to the resourcing of these entities is also up in the air. So whilst, we might be able to sit on our hands and wait until decisions have already been made, I prefer that we take a more proactive approach and actually get on top of this issue right from the get-go and express to the new government what we believe should happen in relation to the advice and support that we get from the Office of Local Government.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers? You want your right to reply, Councillor?
Yes, Madam Mayor. A couple of quick points. It's not just about service delivery, it's also about advocacy. I've worked in the state government and I've been affected by machine of government changes, and I see what happens when you create these super departments or clusters or whatever you want to call them. Effectively, agencies go down the pecking order and they lose their ability to advocate. So given that the Office of Local Government will no longer have a Deputy Secretary, that means the person that runs the office or runs those functions no longer reports directly to the Minister. So that was, I think, the point that the CEO was trying to explain there, that the person running the functions under what was the Office of Local Government, whatever is still called the Office of Local Government, will report to someone who probably reports to someone who probably reports to the DepSec who reports to the Minister, where the current arrangement is you have a DepSec, the DepSec reports to the Minister. That means they have a seat at the table, they're able to directly advocate on behalf of local government. And it is disappointing that Councillor Hadid won't support this motion, because he's on the board of LG New South Wales, and one of the main functions that they carry out is advocacy on behalf of local government. But to each their own, that's fine. But this is very important, and as a point that Councillor Caliander made was, let's get on the front foot. We got on the front foot in regards to medium density housing changes before they came into effect. We did some advocacy and we got a good result there. Let's do that here while we've got a couple months.
Thank you. The motion is now going to be put before the councillors. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? I'll do that again. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? It's in the affirmative, so the motion lapses, the foreshadowed motion lapses, and the motion is upheld. The next item on the agenda is mosquitoes on page 260.
Madam Mayor, could I just have an explanation of that? There was 4 votes for and 4 votes against.
I have the casting vote.
So it would have been better to have had that expressed that way as the casting vote.
Well, the casting vote
you
goes
have
with
made
the
the
affirmative.
decision,
Yeah.
therefore the other motion lapses.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is mosquitoes. I had to count twice too, Councillor, to be honest. Okay, the next item's on page 265. It's very unusual for me to get the casting vote, I have to say. We have only had it once before. Okay, Councillor Haggerty, you're the mosquito man?
Mosquito Man, yes. Keen watchers of the Moorebank Social Group on Facebook would be aware that, and other like-minded groups on Facebook, this is, and it's also been in the press, but this has been a very big issue, especially around the Moorebank area. The reason being there's obviously lots of stagnant water, but this has been an issue right through the local government area. I was out in my front yard in Green Valley a couple of weeks ago doing a bit of running repairs on the garden. Around dusk, I was attacked by swarms of mosquitoes. I've also been out at a number of events, you know, sort of even out as far as Austral. The mosquitoes are everywhere, and it's quite bad. And obviously there are reports of Ross River virus, which is debilitating and very, very serious. We need to do something about it, but we can't do it alone. And unfortunately, mosquitoes do not obey local government boundaries. So, the other issue there around this as well is that, you know, around that area you've got the defence facility, you've got the two intermodals, you've got the water treatment facility across the road, you've got the hospital. So what I'm proposing here is effectively a multi-agency approach. And that, you know, during these colder months we actually get on the front foot and work with these agencies to see what we can do so that if and when another large mosquito season comes, we can act much more quickly and much more effectively. And I do think that as we will have longer, hotter, wetter summers. This has been a bit like we're still getting sort of 30-degree days well into April. Climate change is real, it's happening, and this is one of the effects of that. You know, in what was formerly tropical diseases, so Ross River virus, you know, something that, you know, Queensland and upwards, it's a tropical disease. We are seeing tropical diseases in Liverpool. We will see it happen more and more as we sort of go to a more wet season, dry season type of weather than, you know, your standard 4 seasons. So longer, hotter, wetter summers, more mosquitoes, more potential for Ross River virus. Let's work with the various agencies and let's do some good things around residents' health.
Madam Mayor,
Hold on, I just need a seconder.
Move.
I'll second.
Councillor Caliander, yes, you have a question, Councillor?
No, I also wanted to suggest, if the mover is amenable, to include something in there about being mindful of people with sensitivity to herbicides, and including that in the communications around this issue.
Sure.
So number 5, that any treatment of the issue be mindful of herbicides and the effects
of people and of people with sensitivity to herbicides and pesticides or chemicals that are used, so that we don't end up with not just kind of an insect-borne public health nightmare, but also a chemical-borne public
like
health
the woman
nightmare.
that swallowed the fly. Okay, so Councillor, are you happy with that as a number 5?
I'm happy to prevent a cane toad outbreak.
I have another amendment, if it's suitable.
Okay.
I was particularly impressed with how Council was so quick to respond to this, and I would like to acknowledge the quick response by Council to the mosquito issues, in particular to the Director of City Presentations, Peter Patterson, who immediately started to address this issue as soon as it was raised. And I would like that to be included in this motion.
Well, that's if the mover and the seconder is happy, they can have that at point 6, that the Peter Patterson and his staff be congratulated for their prompt action. Is that what you want, Councillor? Okay.
That'll do it.
They're happy with that? Is there any opposition to this? Okay, well, I'll put it. Those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimous. Next item's on page 267.
Can I move that, Madam Mayor? The motion be withdrawn.
Withdrawn. Thank you, Councillor. Seconder?
It's withdrawn. I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. I'll put it. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Next item's on page 269.
Again, I would love to move the motion be withdrawn. Thank you.
Seconder? Councillor Hall. We'll put Councillor Hall down this time. Thank you. I'll put it. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried.
Can I ask a
Next item.
question? Thank you, Madam Mayor. If these motions are withdrawn, does
Yes.
that mean it's open to have another shot in a month's time?
Well, unfortunately, Councillor, our rules of debate allows it to continue to come back. My suggestion to councillors is that you vary the code of meeting practice. Subsequently, if you have a couple of shots at something, you can't have, like a rescission motion, you have to wait 12 weeks or whatever. But it's a council issue, so it's up to the councillors to make that decision.
So had somebody actually moved that these motions be rejected, I mean, if the numbers were there for that to be carried, then they wouldn't be able to come back later on.
Withdrawn or rejected, we checked before the meeting, councillor, so it's totally in order. My suggestion would be to the councillors to think about how you want to deal with these things that just keep coming back. But anyway, it's a matter for council. Pardon?
I'd like to raise...
Excuse me, councillor. Withdrawn? Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Yep. There's nothing stopping them from coming back. Yep.
Because if it's rejected, Madam Mayor, even if it's rejected, we can put a rescission.
Yep. Yep, it's the only rescission motion that you have that stops it from coming back. That's why I said it's a matter for council, that you can actually amend it yourselves if you so choose, but it's a matter for council. The next item is on page 273.
Move that as per the book.
I've got a question, if I may, Madam Mayor, in relation to that. CONF 01, paragraph 2, exercise its powers to issue a fire safety order, and that's going to a vote. It's hard to express the question, but what if we voted not to, just for example? What's the point of a professional person giving a recommendation that a fire safety order is required, and then we vote on it?
Councillor, I have asked the same question myself on a number of occasions. I've also asked why I can't just do this under delegated authority once I've received professional advice. We are advised that it is required that council vote on this matter, determine this matter.
It just seems that having a debate is not a healthy thing, having regard to...
I don't disagree with you, and I'm happy to take that as a statement and to look into it further, potentially speak to Fire and Rescue New South Wales.
Looks like that's all I can do.
Thank you. So we have a Councillor Rhodes moving. Got a seconder? Councillor Hall. Any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, carried. Next item's on page 285.
I'll move that again as the book.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Seconder? Councillor Hall. Any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, carried. Sorry, I'm just writing my notes. Next item's on page 305.
Move that way.
Thank you, Councillor Haggerty. Seconded.
Got a couple of questions on that, if I
I'll
can
just get a
to it.
seconder. Councillor, seconders.
I'll second.
Thank you. Yes, what is your question, Councillor Rhodes? Remember, this is a confidential item.
I'll direct my questions at a later date. Thank
All
you.
right then. Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to put it. Those in favour, those against, carried. The previous page 285, I think, was unanimous, just so for the typist. Okay. Next item is on page 314.
I have a motion I'd like the council to consider.
Yes, certainly, Councillor.
This is 313, you said?
Yeah, the recommendations on 314, but yes, 313 is when the report starts.
Yeah. Having thought about this a little bit more, obviously our area is growing, and I just wonder, although it seems like a interesting way to go to Blacktown, who's got those wonderful facilities with such good facilities. I just wonder, and if we could have somebody that might be able to answer, when that Blacktown facility is no longer going to cope with the number of the population and animals, does anybody have any idea about that? How long? will that facility service, considering so many of the areas are interested in it?
At this point in time, the projections for that particular facility have at least 20 to 25 years worth of operations in them. They've built in a lot of redundancy. The number of animals also changes in populations as well, depending on changes in land use, and they have taken that into consideration as well when they've been planning their numbers.
I just wonder if it would be, before I put up a motion, whether it would be worth considering that council, because I noticed that West Rock first proposed 3 hubs for the Western City, and Liverpool was to be one of those animal pound hubs. And I wonder if it would be worth us to continue to work with. We keep our current facility, that's going to do us until 2020, not very long. But if we worked with West Rock to feel out whether there is going to be another need for a facility other than Blacktown. And
excuse me, Councillor, you're entering debate.
Okay,
my suggestion
I'll put my
right
motion.
now would be to move the motion that you wish to.
All right, I move a motion.
And that's the one that's now on the computer.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. And then you can debate it.
Okay.
Have we got a seconder? Councillor Howell seconding. Thank you. Now,
So my motion says that
now speak to your motion.
Speak to the motion.
Go
Can everybody read there what it is? I just feel that it might be an opportunity for Liverpool to continue to service the Western City as a hub that we want it to be. I think that the constituents are going to feel that Blacktown's a long way away, and they'll feel a little bit disappointed that Liverpool hasn't got such a facility. But I'd like to Council to prepare a report back to Council on the possibility and the opportunity to build an animal shelter hub at the cost of what they said. And because we've got council-owned land that could possibly be used for such a facility as this. And I'd like that to be included in the report, and there's a few suggestions there of land that I thought that might be considered. But further than that, I'd like the report to identify the business case, both for and against, the need for a possible animal shelter in Liverpool that includes estimates of ongoing costs to run the facility and also run it as a boarding facility because there is a need for such things, and this could be an opportunity for Liverpool to better serve its constituents. But further, the report should include or identify as much as possible the return on investment that takes into consideration the increase in population in the Liverpool LGA and the estimated number of pet ownership growth on a 4, 10 and 20-year projection, which the CEO has given us a brief outline of today. And as background, I can simply say that 60% of Australian households own a pet. And we know that we are a growth area. My question is, how long have we got, even if we do go with Blacktown, and would it be worth now for us to consider and find out all this information so it can be brought back to Council and we can consider it from there?
Can I just ask for clarification on point 3? You have the possible opportunity to build an animal shelter hub at the cost of $2 million. Is that 2 or 20?
I'm sorry, I might have made a typo and I haven't got the figures in front of me from the information.
I think it's
20.
Yes, 20
Okay.
million, not 2.
I'm not too sure.
Just to add a nought into that. Thank you, just for my clarity. Okay, thank you.
Can I
spoke to
foreshadow
your
a motion?
Yes, you can foreshadow your motion. Just hold your horses on it, though, please. Any other speakers for or against this motion? Councillor Hull.
Yes, Madam Mayor. My colleague and I actually spent considerable time looking at the proposals. We looked at various land opportunities around Liverpool, and one of those was Lot 88 at Currajong Road. That currently is a block of land that has no access to Currajong Road, and it means it more or less is likely to be rezoned and sold off. We could use that land, or we have considerable land out at Rossmore Grange that currently is not being looked after very well at all, and we all know this. It's part of the airport area there. But really, Liverpool is big enough and it's going to grow, and I believe we should have our own. I don't think we should fob it off to someone else, particularly the distance between Liverpool and Blacktown is considerable, particularly for elderly people who may need to bring their pets there and so on. There are a lot of considerations where I think we're big enough to do our own rather than get someone else to do that. And if we could invest money into that, and if we manage it, we could actually run it at, not necessarily at a profit, but certainly not at a loss. I think we could, if we were to run this operation at a break-even point, I think it'd be beneficial to Liverpool.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Are we any speakers against? We've had 2 speakers for the motion.
I just have a question. Thank you, Madam
Yes,
Mayor.
Councillor.
Didn't we receive a report about 2 or 3 years ago, which was that it was not going to be economically viable pretty much in any shape or form to continue to operate the Liverpool Pound at Wrenbury beyond the expiration of the lease, and basically we're stuck with the lease in any event?
The CEO wishes to answer your question.
Councillor, yes, there were 2 reports put to Council in 2016 on this matter, one of which detailed the financial implications of the animal shelter, including the Council staff's concerns that when new legislation comes into play, we're non-compliant and there are significant costs to upgrade to compliance. The second report detailed this, the research that had been undertaken as part of this Blacktown Pound study through Wesrock, and got Council's direction to continue to negotiate and explore this. That doesn't mean that we weren't always going to bring a report back for your final approval once we'd been able to work out the financial details. But you're right, it was debated twice in 2016.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Haggerty, can you give us just a quick overview of your foreshadowed motion before people vote?
Basically, as per the book, with an additional point that Council bring back a report in 6 months on the long-term feasibility of a animal shelter and boarding facility in Liverpool.
Okay, thank you.
Bit of a...
All right, just hold your horses on that one. Do you wish anybody wish to speak against this motion? Nobody has actually, so...
Can I just ask for clarification on that amendment to the existing motion? What is the... when do we have to decide as to whether we're going to Blacktown or not? And is 6 months still giving us enough time for Council to consider an option for themselves here in Liverpool?
So there's a few points to an answer I'd give to that. The first is that Blacktown Council ideally want us to decide at this council meeting because they need to know what is the scale of their facility before they go to tender. I work very closely with Blacktown Council. I'm sure if we delayed a month or 2 it wouldn't be an issue to them. I think 6 months would be a greater delay. Even if we return with a council report for you that advises that we would be building a shelter in another area, my strong feeling is that there would be a significant period of time in which we would need coverage one way or another. You could be fairly confident if you entered into a 5-year contract with Blacktown, even if we began detailed design work on the day that we entered into that contract, we would be unlikely to have completed the process over that period of time. It's quite complex. We're waiting for changes to the legislation to come through, and you certainly wouldn't build or design anything until you were absolutely confident about what the legislative requirements were. So I don't think entering into a 5-year contract, and that's why staff have recommended the 5-year contract, because it allows us the capacity to exit out of it if we're unhappy with it without significant time delay or penalty, doesn't prevent Council from also wishing to explore a permanent facility in the Liverpool Council area. The Wrenbury Farm facility was always meant to be a temporary facility, and staff remain concerned that if legislative change comes, then we will be non-compliant with that.
Thank you. We've had the 2...
Can I just make a further suggested amendment to Councillor Haggerty's motion? Well, it's a foreshadowed motion. You know, it's so close, but the amendment that you made doesn't cover all the options that we've got in there. And if we could get that back sooner than 6 months, that would...
So, Councillor, what is your foreshadowed
Okay,
motion?
let's just change the date that
3 months.
All right, 3 months. You're happy to change it to 3 months, Councillor Haggerty? Okay. He's changed his motion, Councillor, to 3 months. Is that what you're after?
Let me just read it again. In the Liverpool LGA, if we can add the words in there, boarding facility in the Liverpool LGA.
Mm-hmm. Are you happy with that, Councillor Haggerty?
And can we also include in it a report on, or does the feasibility cover whether it is a good business proposal or not?
The report will cover all of that. It has to.
Okay, happy with that.
Okay, so are you withdrawing your motion, Councillor?
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, seconder happy with that withdrawal? I think he's shaking his head, sort of. No, he's not.
Yes and no, Madam Mayor. The motions are basically the same. I thought a foreshadowed motion had to be significantly different.
There's a motion before you that's been put by Councillor Rhodes, which is quite detailed and is different to what's in the recommendation. It's on page 314. I'm asking you, are you happy to withdraw it? If you're not, it will be put to the council. You're happy to withdraw it? Thank you.
Can I just ask again for clarification?
Yeah.
Is a foreshadow motion supposed to be different? Because I do agree with Councillor Hull that it is.
They are supposed to be different, but this one is different because the book is actually what's there. You've detailed a whole lot of other actions which aren't
But which amount to the same thing.
Well, my ruling is they are sufficiently different for a foreshadowed motion to be upstanding. Now,
so, Madam Mayor,
yes, Councillor.
Can I just second Councillor Haggerty's motion
Yes, certainly.
for the sake of process?
Okay, before we get lost in the wash. Any discussion? The motion has been withdrawn and the foreshadowed motion now becomes the motion, which is the recommendation in the book with an extra part 2, which councillors I'm sure are very clear on. I'm going to put it, those in favour, those against, declare it carried. The next item's on page 319. Did you say you're moving it, Councillor Did? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Seconded, Councillor Sheldon. Any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour? Those against?
Can I be recorded as against
Yeah,
that
sure.
motion? Thank you.
No problem. Declare it carried and the meeting is now closed. Thank you very much.